Hey guys, LC Holt here. And this is my update for the week of July the 22nd. That means 2 days until this guy here turns 2 years older. So, send me shit. Sitting next to me to my immediate right, Rebecca Ivy.
Hello.
And joining me for the third time to discuss the first Alien film, we're going to be doing, whoa, there he is, Damian Maffei.
Hello, how are you?
And don't let
2 years older?
Well, I will be in a few days.
2 years.
1 year, 2 days after this.
You said 2 years.
I said 2 years.
That's why I looked at you like you were nuts.
Poor guy. Poor guy.
Oh, Jesus Christ, man! I've had too much coffee. I'm fucking
Your
wired.
math is blowing my mind.
Well, I was never very good at math, but I will tell you one thing I am good at. Well, anyway, don't let Damian's hat fool you, because today we're going to be talking about the first Alien film. Perfect.
Put a little piece of tape there.
Yeah, did a little piece of electrical tape.
They didn't do hats for the first Alien like this,
Yeah, people didn't have heads back then. But we're going to continue this series, and we're going to do all of the Alien movies. But tonight, we're just going to concentrate on the one that was released June 22nd, 1979, which was directed by Ridley Scott. Now, I want to start talking about, oh my God, I know that guy. That's Special Agent Del Cooper.
Aww.
Continue.
So this concept was created.
They make it into an awkward moment.
I loved it. I was trying to make it last, actually.
Burst out of the stomach.
If he had burst from your chest, it would have been perfectly apropos.
He is like a little chest burster.
Yes.
That's right. Or if he'd been named Jonesy, though it's the wrong, But anyway, Dan O'Bannon came up with this story. He came up with this story after working with a guy named John Carpenter on a movie named Dark Star back in 1974. Dark Star was a film made by two USC film students, and it was a comedy about a bunch of people stuck on a spaceship with a beach ball alien. It was a comedy that nobody laughed at, and it flopped. It didn't hurt John Carpenter's career too much because, I think we all know who he is. Dan O'Bannon took it pretty hard. Goes to Mars, brother. And he decided he was going to make up for Dark Star by making basically the same movie, but as a horror film. And so that is where the original concept for Alien came from. But that's not where it ended, thankfully. He met another writer named Ron Shusett, who had never actually written anything, but he somehow negotiated after Philip K. Dick's crazy ass the rights to a story called We'll Remember It For You Wholesale. And he just collapsed in Damian's bedroom. Now, Ron, it's Dan O'Bannon's ghost.
Xenomorph. See? Is it two?
That's, was that spelled with a Z?
Xenomorph. It's phonetic.
Okay. Oh, I got you. It is phonetic. Sure. Yeah. But anyway, what was I talking about?
It's just.
Now that's a lot better. I can see it now. Thank you. Say something.
Xenomorph. I know how to spell xenomorph, guy. Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna leave it at that.
It was just a joke.
Got you. I got you, man. I got your backs. Now, if before Dan O'Bannon's dead ass collapsed in your bedroom and you misspelled xenomorph, I was trying to say that Ron Shusett had bought this short story, which was eventually made into Total Recall. Well, him and Dan O'Bannon, who had Crohn's disease, incidentally, decided to get together and work on Alien, which originally was called Star Beast. But there was a little detour because Dan O'Bannon tried to do worked for 6 months in Paris on a remake of Dune that never happened, which would have been really interesting. He met a guy named H.R. Giger. Say that again?
Dune never happens. People will always try to make Dune.
Well, what do you think of? You didn't like David Lynch's Dune?
Nah.
Simple and to the point. I like it. but which is completely opposite of what I am doing right now, which
It's
is
got
telling
Kyle
you.
MacLachlan in it. I still don't really like it.
Yeah, well, that's true, and that was the first time. That was the very first time. But anyway, Dan O'Bannon over there working on the Dune that never happened met H.R. Giger. This is going to be pretty important coming up here soon. But anyway, he went back to America, and that's where he said that him and Ron Shusett started working on the outline for Alien. Now, they said that it took them 3 weeks to write half an outline for Alien, which is a little much considering that the first half of the fucking movie is something we've seen a million times, which is space, astronauts on a spaceship getting a distress signal. That's not the original part.
No.
The original part is what Ron Shusett said came to him in a dream one night, which is he said he thought that the alien should impregnate one of the people, and that's how he gets on the ship. Now, that's an original idea.
Mm-hmm.
A couple other people thought that was an original idea. Did they not, Becca?
Oh, they did.
Oh.
Do you want me to go into about
Oh, you're talking about yeah.
Okay.
Tell me what you got.
So it was meant to be a Roger Corman film, and a friend of theirs actually slipped the script to Walter Hill, who coincidentally hated sci-fi films, but he did like the chest burster part. So his company, which was called Brandywine, bought it, and his partners in that company were Gordon Carroll and David Giler.
David Giler. Yeah. Have you ever read the script, Damian, for Alien, the original O'Bannon script?
Yeah, I don't need to. There's the movie.
Well, let me tell you something. I read that script, and you know what I thought about it?
Sucked.
It absolutely stank. You could tell it was like a Roger Corman film because it had Roger Corman dialogue. It's like, hey, let's go get our space suit. Here's your space suit. Let's go explore this planet. And then they went on the planet, and it was like, pyramids and urns and very Egyptian-y type stuff. And then, an alien jumped out and got on someone's face. And then it kind of got interesting. But I think that was about 80 pages into the movie, into the script.
Slow burn, as the kids call it.
It was a slow burn. Good thing is, Walter Hill and David Giler totally rewrote that piece of shit. And they rewrit that. And they made that pretty good, don't you say, Damien?
I think they did okay.
You know what I think they did that was really good? They simplified it. Yeah. They really took it and they made the characters in a way a lot more natural. They introduced the idea of truck drivers in space, which is a pretty brilliant idea, in my humble opinion. And they just had these long, but the way they wrote was really interesting. I've never read a script like that. It would be like, interior ship, long haul, strobing light, machine comes on, it whirs. It was like these long little broken paragraph things. Kind of weird to read, but I think the idea was in trying to get a good execution to it, and not so much about. There was something that Dan O'Bannon actually said when he wrote his script, which I always thought was funny. Was he said that I was just working on the story, the first draft, and then I was going to do characters later. And I'm like, I've never written like that. I've never written a story and not cared about the characters. What about you, D?
I've never written anything like that.
I think you could have written a good alien movie.
I've never written anything.
Well,
yeah, I probably couldn't have written a good alien. I don't know. We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Because it would have been like Deep Star 6. That would have been my version.
This was just a little bit before you were born, this movie. Not much, because you're slightly older than I am.
That's unnecessary, I think.
Well, I said slightly. You're not that much. I mean,
I don't see how that information is relevant at all to what we're talking about here.
But you age 2 years at a time, obviously.
I do age 2 years at a time. So I guess we're the same age. Okay? I just don't want to say
my dog.
Oh my God, it's like young Einstein. I'm sorry, Del.
At Yahoo Serious.
Well, as she pointed out,
I played a young Einstein once in Picasso at the Le Pan au Gilles by Steve Martin.
Yeah, she auditioned for that.
It
Yeah.
was wonderful.
Well,
Great.
I was going to say though that we are the same age because she said I aged 2 years at a time. So
You said that.
I did, and she
We
reinforced.
heard you, and it's on the thingy.
It's forever immortalized. Thank you. Now I was going to say that you know why this Alien movie even got greenlit?
No.
I know why.
Why?
Because of Star Wars.
Oh,
Makes sense. Just like Moonraker.
Yeah.
Moonraker
Exactly.
knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Battlestar Galactica on television.
Yeah.
Everyone was Star Wars space crazy, and it was greenlit by Alan Ladd Jr.
Same guy that was responsible for Star Wars.
Yes.
That bum.
That bum. I hear his dad was famous though.
Yeah.
Walter Hill would have liked his dad. He was a Western guy. But anyway, Ridley Scott, who had only really directed one other movie called The Duelists, a Napoleonic era movie, was hired to direct Alien, which is kind of a crazy choice, but ultimately a good choice because Ridley Scott was a great visualist. He wasn't hugely into monster movies, but he said he wanted to make this into a horror film like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's what he wanted to make, which, if you look at it, you could go, yeah, I can kind of see where he's coming with that. It has that slow build, and it's very much about suspense.
Yeah.
Probably a neat little piece of trivia is that these characters were written as unisex characters.
Mm-hmm. Which, yeah, and Ripley, actually the character of Ripley, Ridley Scott wanted Ripley to be a woman. So that's why.
Ripley's a woman.
Yeah, Ripley's a woman.
Sigourney Weaver.
So it was not originally written as, this powerful female character. It was just a character in space.
Women in space, he says.
Yes.
Sigourney Weaver was a Broadway actress.
Yes, and she was in Annie Hall.
She was in Annie Hall from about 100 yards away.
Yeah.
But she was probably too loud when they were filming.
That's right, because she got all her shit cut out. She was talking too loud. You can't even. She's a very tall woman in life, but she's about that big in Annie Hall. She's standing across the street with Woody. But it was her first film role. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the movie itself here, because the movie has a really cool opening. I really dig the opening because it is so subdued, and it has a slow burn sort of feeling to it. These dark halls, and then lights start to come on, and then next thing you know, these big pods open up, and here are these characters. And then you just get to know these characters because you're hanging around them. Nobody's giving any monologues or telling you, hey, my name is Kane. Let me tell you about my career, which I like, and it helps that they had some great actors. Did you know that Veronica Cartwright thought she was cast as Ripley, Damian?
I did not know that.
She thought she was cast as Ripley until she went to England to film the movie.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunate.
What would you do?
See her as Ripley.
I couldn't see her as Ripley either. She plays Lambert.
Thank you. Just kidding, I did. What would I do? I don't know. I'd be pretty. I mean, Lambert hangs in there for a while. It's certainly not a worthless part. She does get Yaphet Kotto killed. So there's that. I don't know. Why did she think that?
Yaphet Kotto was already a Bond villain at this point. I'm surprised he played this part. I'm glad he did. I met Yaphet Kotto. There's actually a picture of me out there somewhere, I assume, with Yaphet Kotto, because I remember being.
About aliens? He's a big believer in actual aliens.
He's just big.
Did he tell you about how he antagonized poor Sigourney Weaver?
No.
Because he didn't think she was strong enough to play Ripley?
How dare he?
How dare he?
Yeah.
Well, he already had a following at that point. And who is she?
Why did Veronica Cartwright think she was playing Ripley?
Well, she auditioned for Ripley, and she was told that she was playing the part, apparently by her agent.
I was going to say she needs a new agent.
And she went over there, and when she got there, they said, well, okay, we need to go ahead and get you in Lambert's wardrobe. And she was like, Lambert? And she called her agent. She said, aren't I playing Ripley? And her agent said, yeah. She's like, no, we're not. No,
Yeah,
we're not.
Ripley. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, the woman.
That sounds like a problem with the agent. I'm sure the movie, the production didn't tell her she was playing Ripley.
No, I don't think they did at all. She actually wound up playing a man. Actually, she did play a man. She was retroactively made a man. If you saw the DVD extras from the 2003 release, did you ever hear that shit, Damian?
No, that shit I did hear.
That Lambert in those, there's like a special feature where you can look at the files that appear on screen in the sequel. Yeah. Of the crew members, and it says in the file that Lambert was born a man and became a woman. Veronica Cartwright, I don't think knew that when she played the part. I don't think
she knew a lot. She really didn't know a hell of a lot.
She didn't even know who she was playing. She thought she was playing a fucking cat. She's like, I'm playing Jonesy, right?
Come on, is she Ripley? She's no Ripley.
No. I mean, you know, she is Sigourney Weaver. Maybe the reason Yaphet was so angry is because they could look eye to eye. Because Sigourney's a big lady. I mean, you know, tall lady, and Yaphet is. I'm not going to go into the Yaphet Kato thing because it was kind of a weird situation. But if anyone finds that picture, I'd love to see it because I'm sure it looks very awkward. Anyway, did you know old John Hurt wasn't even the first Kane?
Finch, right? John Finch.
John Finch from Hitchcock's Frenzy, which I love, actually. Underrated Hitchcock flick. Macbeth, that's right. He found out he had diabetes on Alien because he started shooting the movie and he passed out practically.
Yeah. Turned yellow, I think. He was turning yellow.
That's what they said. He turned yellow and they had...
You know, not scared, but sick.
And they had to get him out of there. So Ridley Scott said, hey, John Hurt, you think you can fill in? And John Hurt was like, maybe. Ridley Scott said, can you start work tomorrow? John Hurt was like, okay. So he did it. And now we have, it worked well. Yeah. The first of, well, not the first, because John Hurt had already appeared quite a few times in quite a few movies, but he is a great actor, Elephant Man. He would go on to do with David Lynch, who we already have crowbarred into this episode somehow. But anyway, yeah, Ridley Scott was a pretty prepared guy doing this movie.
Yeah. He actually storyboarded the entire film in 3 weeks.
Damn.
That's how prepared he was. The studio higher ups, they saw the storyboard and they doubled the budget from $4 million to $8 million just from the storyboard.
Now, is it true that Tom Skerritt originally turned it down because it was a small of a budget? He thought it would be like a Roger Corman movie. Talk to me on that.
I think so. I think that is actually very much true, Damian. I think he did turn it down. Tom Skerritt, yeah, he said originally that it was like a $3 million budget when he was first offered it. And he was like, hell no. It's like, do you know who I am? I'm Tom Skerritt, by God.
Tom Skerritt.
And he was about to go on to make history with picket fences. But first, he had to play Callie.
Making picket fences.
And Still Magnolias.
That's true. He was in Still Magnolias as well.
What history did picket fences make?
Well, history, it made no history. No.
Oh, okay.
No, it was the first movie or first TV show that David E. Kelley. So I guess for David E. Kelley fans, made history. No. I don't want to go through this though and not mention one of my favorite scenes since we're talking about John Hurt. The chest burster. But we have to get kind of the lead up into that.
Can you talk about Alien and not mention that? I mean, that would be a pretty cool podcast if you were talking about Alien and just completely ignored the chest bursting thing.
Well, we're not going to ignore it, Damon. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about how he got that fucking thing on his, we're going to talk how he got that fucking thing on his face to begin with. Because they land on this planet that has a bunch of letters and numbers behind it, and they go over, and not yet though, that's in the sequel. And then they go over to this ship. They walk over there. Mistake number one. And then they walk into this ship, which is designed by H.R. Giger. And if you've ever seen any, interviews with Giger, he's always like, and then the tunnel will be like a tube, and it will come out like vaginal tube. The baby comes out of the tube.
Everything is the penises and vaginas.
A lot of penises and vagina tubes, and we could not find tube, so tube. And so they go through this tube and they arrive in this giant room that is probably one of the coolest design things I've ever seen. It became known as the Space Jockey.
Not a place you should be in. That's mistake 5.
Yeah. So we need to keep count because there's many mistakes going on here, starting with walking. And so they get to this space jockey. They get to this space jockey room, and they had, when they shot it, they had kids to make the room look bigger.
Yeah.
And the space jockey, I think they put Ridley Scott's kids in those suits, and so they had them walk around, and so it kind of doubled the set size. But that set cost like $400,000, and Fox was like, "We're not giving you $400,000 for a set you're going to use once. Are you crazy?" Because they never go back to the space jockey room. They do later, and we're not going to talk about that right now. But that was many years later. But in this movie, when it was great and mysterious, they are in the room for a total of about 30 seconds. And it's an H.R. Giger room, with a lot of bones and black. And he didn't like it because he said he didn't finish painting the space jockey. It's like, space jockey was not finished paint, so they showed before the paint, and I was not happy. Tube. What did you think?
Me. Yeah, I thought it was fine.
I thought it was pretty cool too.
I didn't, yeah.
I think it's great, and I never wanted to know more about it.
I didn't either. That's one of my big things. And
that's something that its mystery is a thing of beauty, and I don't.
Now we have their Facebook page. We have their email address.
Yeah. Now you know everything. You know everything. But they lower themselves, Kane does, down into this giant silo tube. And they're
mistake number 11.
Huge mistake.
Oh, but they go underneath that mist layer, like that thingy.
Yeah, like the Who show. It's the laser show for the Who.
The laser show.
And they go down the laser show for the Who.
You never go down into somewhere that has a natural laser show.
No.
Organic laser shows?
And it's full of eggs.
That would be like you. I would have been like,
there's thousands of eggs, it seems like.
I'm good.
The problem was that they hadn't had access to Alien before they went down into the thing. If they had only watched Alien, they would know you don't do things like that. That's why people today, the kids of the future, they have Alien, they know not to do these things. Just like water because of that shark.
That's true. I almost wore my shark shirt, but I didn't because it's Alien. But I'll tell you one thing else. When he went down into that little silo room, which was not created by an android named David, I almost said Damian. You're an android, Damian.
I heard you.
Yeah.
Did all for you.
And you age 2 years at a time. But
obviously not.
But anyway, so this thing opens up and this creature jumps out and it latches on to John Hurt's face, Kane.
Yeah.
And they take him back to the ship, and mistake number 23, they let him in the fucking ship. But
I mean that's where it really starts to hum, because you got Ripley and she's she's by the book. She's following the protocol. You can't come in. And Dallas is that's an order.
And then Ash goes to the door.
Ash
is a peculiar little guy. He seems to have a lot of energy. He likes jogging in place a lot. And he has these weird... Hobbit. He's like a hobbit, and he's kind of short, and he eventually becomes, Bilbo. But before he was Bilbo, he was Ash. Yeah. And we're not going to go into Ash just yet. We'll save some of Ash's revelations for here momentarily. I did want to mention that, like I said, Geiger created all of the ship and the planet of the Earth, that they land on, not the Earth, but the LV 7745672B or whatever. And then Ron Cobb created the Nostromo, which is the ship that our main characters are hanging out in. So you had two different brains on two different sides of this thing. You had H.R. Giger's brain, which was very alien. And then you had Ron Cobb's brain on the actual human ship, which was very utilitarian, I guess you would say. Ron Cobb had some interesting ideas for that ship.
Yeah, he envisioned that it would tumble through space instead of, just cruising along.
That's a neat idea.
Yeah.
You could do that nowadays.
Yeah.
What do you think, Damian? Tumbling or going straight?
If I'm going to be in the ship, I'm going to go straight.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah,
I don't do well with like spinning things. I can't go on like the teacups or anything that spins. I just vomit.
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to be on a tumbling ship.
What about roller coasters?
Nah, I can't do. You know what? I don't do anything anymore. Okay.
Okay. I understand. I'm not going to push it.
What does the tumbling add? Does it make?
I think the idea was it tumbles as a way of creating gravity. So you would just see this tumbling thing through space, and the motion of that creates gravity, kind of a la 2001, only a little more tumbly.
Like a tumbleweave.
Yeah.
I mean, the tumbleweeds have to, because they don't fly, so they're round, so they go on the floor.
Yes.
Very true. Very true.
This guy's got to pitch me further on this tumbling thing.
Well, Ridley Scott wasn't impressed either, because he was like, no, it's going to go straight.
Yeah.
I mean, would the ship have looked differently? Or?
Yeah, I think I saw a design for the tumbly one. It was a lot more boxy. It wasn't like a straight sort of. Well, I mean, this one sort of looks like an oil refinery because it's a mineral oil ores and stuff that's being refined in this thing. So it sort of looks like a refinery with a ship on the front, which it would not have looked like that had it been, Ronnie Cobb. Ronnie Cobb's a smart guy, though. He created a lot of cool stuff for this movie and for the next movie. So even though the tumbling...
Hey, maybe he knows something I don't know, but I want to know. I want to before I sign on for Tumbly Ship. Because now it doesn't make much sense to me.
Nowadays, you could do a tumbly ship. I mean, maybe not with you directing it because you're not sold on the idea. But if you wanted to do a tumbly ship, you probably could come up with that now. We're way too far into the tumbly ship. Why are we talking about this tumbly ship shit?
Because it's crazy.
It is kind of fascinating.
How does this work?
But I did want to talk
about Boba Fett's ship, the Slave One. I mean, that thing's stupid.
She's the Star Wars fan. I can't speak on the Star Wars.
What the hell are you designing a ship like that for? Stupid. Now, boss, the Houndtooth.
It's okay.
Let's talk about this. Wait. I got more to talk about the chest burster.
Okay. Back to Alien.
It's some important shit here, because when that thing came bursting out, the actors, according to some reports, and a lot of times this is bullshit, like, we did it on the first take with no rehearsal so we get their reaction. But they tried to apparently do that. I think it didn't come out the first time because, again, we're talking about H.R. Giger. So, it's basically a chest with a penis coming out of it. I mean, he gives birth to a penis out of his chest.
Yeah.
And then it goes and shoots across the table with a little tail waggling. It's a great scene. Wonderful scene. But, I mean, it is a penis. It's a tube. And Carlo Rambaldi created a lot of this. He created the face of the alien that did all the articulation, from Giger's design. But he did that with again, it's a penis comes out of his mouth with little chompers on the end of it.
Yeah.
And but so anyway, I wanted to give Carlo Rambaldi a little shout out because I think that face is really amazing, because you always remember the scene with the drool coming out and the mouth opening and then the tube coming out. Yeah, exactly. Because that's some great shit. Even though you don't see a lot of it in this movie on purpose, sort of like the shark in Jaws. Who'd they get in that suit, I wonder?
It was a 7-foot-tall graphic artist, and they discovered him at a bar.
You were discovered at a bar, weren't you, Damian?
Every night.
Love it.
All your best roles, Elsie.
All my best roles, I was discovered in a bar. You're next, bar. VHS2, bar.
No bars for me. Sorry.
And a Chuck E. Cheese.
One Chuck E. Cheese. That was a movie I don't like to talk about, though.
And then you were discovered in prison after the Chuck E. Cheese.
Well, that's where all the tubes came into play. But we're not going to go into that any further. We're going to talk about Shepperton Studio. That's where we shot this motion picture. What I thought was kind of cool, they designed the Nostromo set so that it was one complete thing. So if you walked out one door and went down the hall, you would be into the engine room. And then you could walk into that. As an actor, I think about that and I go, that really would be immersive.
Absolutely.
I would love to do a film like that, where you could live inside the world. Like you couldn't leave the Nostromo once you were in it, basically. You had like 2 exits.
You don't want an episode 1 style where it's just a screen and a dot.
I do not want an episode 1 style of anything. I've never done a lot of green screen. Damian, have you ever done any of that green screen and stuff?
A little bit.
Yeah, I've never done it. I would try it. I've never been in a film where it was required. I did a short where it had some of that stuff in it. I'm still not entirely sold on the process of it.
All these superhero movies, I mean, that's really all it is, I think.
Well, I think I could live with that if I got like a Marvel check.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I was going to say too, John, these suits that they made for these guys, which are really cool suits, like moon boots and really heavy though, and you couldn't breathe in them. John Hurt was a heavy smoker. He used to pass out in those things. Can you imagine? John Hurt takes a few steps and he hits the floor, man.
They should have hooked a cigarette up in there.
Yeah, they had the suits were cool. Interesting color scheme on them too.
You ever think of it looks a lot like Mobius.
Yeah.
Very heavy metal type looking. I think that Ridley Scott must have really been into Mobius was an artist that did this heavy metal if no one knows, and most people do. But that always kind of struck me. Something that I remember you telling me in college about the cat.
Oh yeah. I think it was a religion class, and I guess they thought Alien would be a good religion movie. But the religion professor was saying that the cat was a God character because it's always there, it watches, never gets involved, and the alien looks at it, and it's also kind of like of the cat, So it's kind of a God-like character in the first film. I don't know. It's just something my professor was talking about. It was kind of interesting.
It never occurred to me.
But Jonesy is God.
And Harry Dean Stanton goes to look for God.
Yeah.
And he dies because of it.
And God is evading him the whole time, which is my experience as well.
And then aliens, it's time for wars, and you little shit, you're staying here. There's no God coming to.
There's no God in war.
Nope.
Yeah.
That's.
Now there's another famous scene that we'd have to talk about. I may be skipping some. If I am, let me know. But another one.
So many famous scenes, so many good scenes. And I know, I'm making cracks here, but yeah. certainly plenty of good stuff to talk about. Obviously, the dinner scene, the chest bursting scene is it's pretty harrowing. It's brutal because they're eating the food and stuff, and they're having a good time, and then the penis comes out. It's like, who invited this penis? But the next scene you're going to mention is, of course,
the next scene I'm going to mention is, of course, the scene in Mother's womb.
Mother's womb.
Yeah, but before I get there, let me just say one thing, because I am skipping over a sequence that, as a child, was the thing that scared me most. Whenever I watched this, when I was, say, like pre-12, which I don't know if you need to watch it pre-12, but what always scared me is I wanted to skip the part where the captain was in the air ducts.
Which is the best scene in the movie.
Exactly. And it was so effective to me at that age, I was just terrified. I didn't want to see the start of it. I certainly didn't want to see the end of it. And but I just remember that being so effective. And now I watch it, and even now it makes me nervous.
Can we talk about that scene? How great that scene is?
Let's do it. Tell me about it, Damian.
Because Dallas there, back then, and I remember when I watched it, 60 years ago.
And that's no exaggeration.
No, it was 60 years ago. In 2 weeks. You expect him to be your kind of your hero. He's a white male. He's the captain, so he's going to save the day, right? So he goes into I really like Dallas. I really like Tom Skerritt in there because he's fair, but he's kind of by the book. He's doing things, the way they need to be done. He's kind of the working man there. That's turned captain. But he puts himself in there. He goes in there because it's he brought that thing onto the ship, and he's in charge. He goes in there, and that scene where he's up against the wall, and he kind of mutters to himself a little bit. You can't really. It's fantastic, and the camera angles, and then them on the other end, watching into the little dots, and Lambert getting more shrill, and Ash just watching.
And she has one of the lines that always freaked me out, because I knew when this line came would be the moment when, as a kid, I would scream. And she says, "No, not that way.
Not that way, the other way." Yeah.
And it's too late, because as soon as he turns around, there it is. And that's a really incredibly effective
He
film.
knows he messed up going in there, and he just wants to get as he says, I want to get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
It's great. The music, the way it's shot, it's good stuff. It's great stuff.
Absolutely. And I do want to talk about the music here in a little bit, but I definitely, before we got to the mother's womb and one of many infamous scenes, I wanted to throw that in there because that was a good one. Obviously, the death of Brett, we've kind of talked about with the cat and the cat analogy. But there's this scene where Ripley goes into, after, because Dallas is the captain, Kane is the executive officer. Captain dies in the air ducts, or does he? And Kane has the penis that comes out of his chest. And so then she is next in command. And so she goes in, she has access to Mother now, and Mother being the robot, the intelligence that runs the ship. She goes in there and she wants to know what this mission was all about. And she logs into Mother and sees that there's an executive order that's been sent from the company, the infamous corporation in charge of this operation. That rhymed. I got a song going there. And it says,
just run with it. Just run with it.
I tell you, I'm about to start freestyling, brother.
Just do it. Just do it.
And then what happens is that she finds out that the crew, according to the company, is expendable. And this creature is what they want.
Isn't that the way it always is now?
Yeah.
It's so shocking that Ripley's nose starts to bleed. Why does her nose start to bleed?
That happens sometimes under stress.
Do you think that's what it is, or do you think there was a scene that was cut? because mysteriously her nose starts to bleed.
I remember I was trying to get that Peeping Tom movie made the second time, and I was doing it all myself, and it was just mounting on me. And then I remember I was sitting there on the computer one day, and my nose just started to gush, which is not a normal thing for me. So, and it was just stress. Of course, that took a couple of months, but I mean, I wasn't on a spaceship with an alien killing people, so maybe that speeds the process up.
And you got a really peculiar guy leaning in over your shoulder, uncomfortably close, by the way. And he's acting really weird at this point. And she tries to get away from him, and he keeps closing doors in front of her, which is never a good sign. And then things get really weird. And this goes into the beginning of, I think we'll call Ridley Scott's obsession with android sexuality. Because it continues, because Ridley Scott honestly seems more interested in the androids than in anything else.
It's in every movie he makes.
Yeah, he's got a real obsession with these synthetic people.
Yes.
To quote our good friend Bishop. And some people won't even know who we're talking about. Shame you. But we haven't gotten to part 2 yet. But staying on part 1, he grabs Ripley and holds her down in this little porno corner where he has all this like naked women up, and then he takes a magazine, rolls it up, and tries to shove it.
Craziest thing I'd ever seen when I was like, 7 and watching it. Like I didn't even understand. I was like, I don't even understand. What is he doing? He's gonna choke her that way? He's gonna suffocate her? It's crazy.
Is he like living out some sort of sexual android fantasy? Does he think that's how we do it?
Ridley?
No,
Ash? Probably.
And it's a very peculiar scene. And
it is. And it's part of the greatness because he's malfunctioning. He's spazzing out. So maybe that's just part of his malfunction.
And he does start to malfunction because he seems to have like orgasmic reactions to this magazine going in, and then Yaphet grabs him. Parker, the character, and they have a little minor scuffle, and then he knocks Ash's head off.
Yeah,
which is a pretty shocking scene, though the arms look a little mechanical. But
he's a robot. His head is gone. The body doesn't know what's going on, so it's just it's fine.
It's cut to look really good, though. The raw footage of that doesn't look so great, but the cut footage, as it is in the movie, it looks really it looks pretty good with even the arms going. But that scene I really wanted, and that's also the first time that we see that the androids seem to bleed and sweat milk or some sort of a white milky substance.
Yeah.
And then there is a scene where the head is sitting on a table, and I love the scene at the end where he gives that. It's a great scene where he's talking with that voice. His malfunctioning, sort of messed up voice, grizzled up. And then, she's like, she disconnects him. And then he just sort of goes, like his head just kind of falls to the side like that.
Why didn't she stick some magazines in it?
It would have been great if you cut back and he's like on a little pedestal magazine and the head is just sitting on top. And she's like, yes, this is how we do it.
Copy a Hustler.
Yeah, Ash is a very peculiar android. They did not really perfect David, that's for sure. But we're not going to go into David because David was first and then Ash came along, even though David seems a lot more advanced than Ash does. He didn't malfunction that badly.
Well, the technology is a lot more advanced too. So.
Well, yeah. Anyway, I don't want to go off.
They got little friggin' balls that can send down caverns that can map things out. What the hell was this when they went and found the space jockey first? They could just send out some balls.
That's true. And the ship, the Nostromo, as cool as it looks, next to the ships in Prometheus and Alien Covenant, it's like, how did that technology in the Nostromo come after?
It's always a mistake. It's always the trap when you're doing a prequel like this, like with Star Wars. Yeah. It's like we have all this, it's 30 years later, we have all this technology, we can like really do impressive stuff, but like stay true to your first movie. I mean, you can have some technology because they're truckers, right? So, like an expedition team, like in this other movie, could have some cooler stuff, but it's just Prometheus is
also completely funded by Wayland. It's his pet project. So
Yeah.
maybe you could explain it that way. I don't know.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, Prometheus is just in the ship. They have the holograms and stuff. I mean, that stuff is obviously nowhere near the first movie.
Yeah, certainly not long, it's just impossible. But I think you hit on a good point there, Damian, because that is a common mistake people do when they do prequels. Instead of following the aesthetic of the first, even if it was made in the 70s, you have to go with a 21st century aesthetic, which might look glossy and cool now and might be cool to market, because kids don't want to see 70s stuff.
No.
But, it kind of doesn't make any sense in the story. But, okay, whatever.
They don't want to see the 70s, the futuristic 70s stuff was always the best. Logan's Run. I mean, that's the best technology.
And the alien in Alien looked better than the aliens in Alien Covenant because it was real.
I was going to say, yeah, you could touch it. It didn't look like a Jello mold running around.
And I'll even say, like, the Nostromo, honestly, looks a lot better than most of these really glossy CGI ships because they use the Star Wars technique where you just took a bunch of kits apart and you took the pieces and you made this intricate-looking, cool thing that had all these little things, and it just looked like, okay, that's a corridor, that's a duct of some kind, or it looked cool because it was so random and detailed.
Yeah.
Imagine if you actually made the models and just used CGI to make it move through space or something. But when you make the entire ship just as a completely digitized thing, it has a glossy thing when you look at it. To me, maybe it's because I'm older and remember these movies and grew up watching that kind of technology, but I just think it looks better.
I mean, that's a big part of it. Usually is the nostalgia thing, which I don't really do nostalgia. But I mean, there's a there's a line, it has some really impressive effects that for the most part hold up. So, and that's better than the shiny cartoon version.
I agree. I do like that with the new films. I don't want to go too much into the new films because we're talking about the original one, but I do like that Ridley is building the sets and making, like, I thought for sure those engineers were CGI. I didn't realize it was a big guy in makeup. That is impressive. That's very cool. Because I would have sworn that was computer generated. But anyway, back to.
Well, I mean, it has to have some kind of computer gloss over it. I mean, you can't just have practical effects on there. And I mean, if it was just practical effects, it wouldn't look like a cartoon. Like in the Thing prequel. Yeah, those practical effects with CG schmear over it, which make them look like shit.
I was going to say, the original Thing.
Cats in the new Cats movie have some makeup on them, but they look like Sonic the Hedgehog.
The Cats trailer is terrifying.
It is. That show is terrifying on its own.
I didn't know they were even making this movie. And then I see this trailer. I'm like, oh, this is a joke. And I start watching. It's like Idris Elba. I'm, what? This is for real? It's terrifying.
Cats are evil, man.
I don't like it. I don't dig it.
Unless you're the cat on the alien ship.
And if you're the cat on the Nostromo, you're God.
That cat ain't so great. Cat doesn't do anything except get people killed.
I wonder how many people back in the day when they were watching Alien in the theater were going, why are you going back for the cat?
Yeah. I still say that. Just leave it.
Because she hears the cat meow over some sort of a radio or a two-way speaker, and she turns around. She's about to self-destruct this thing. She's going back for the cat.
Don't go back for it. It's not a dog. Leave it.
No. But, I got to talk, too, about the suspense sequence that is, I think, one of the greatest ones, is the self-destruct sequence. There is a very disturbing death involving Lambert. where something happens to her off screen, which is great. And I hope Ridley Scott never adds a scene where you see what happened to her, because you just see this stinger tail come up between her legs and you go, oh God, what's going on there?
She gets Parker killed first.
She does. Parker dies, and then Lambert.
Parker could have ended it there.
Yaphet probably could have ended it. If I was going to go up against an alien, I would say, here, Yaphet, have at it, man.
Well, he has the weapon. He's got the weapon. She won't get out of the way.
That's right, because he was making the flamethrower, right? He was making.
He has it on him. She won't get out of the way. So he goes to wrestle with it. He could have killed the two of them.
Yeah. Which is probably what he should have done.
And the wrestling match didn't end well for Parker. He was outmatched by this 7-foot-tall creature.
Really, I mean, what has Veronica Cartwright done for us?
She just went. He went hysterical, and then he. Oh, I'm sorry. She went hysterical, and then. Okay, might have to cut that one. But anyway, Lambert was an interesting character.
I like Body Snatchers because she was in that too.
She was, and I loved her in that, and I loved that flick. It's my favorite version. Favorite version of the Body Snatchers, which is an adaptation that is not something people get right. I've never seen a good Body Snatchers movie except for that one.
That's it.
It's a great book. I love the book, but how they never got it right is just beyond me. But anyway,
except for that movie.
Except for that one, yeah, exactly. That's
brilliant, brilliant. Love it.
Yeah, great cast.
Be back on when you talk about that.
Oh, we're going to talk about that. I can guarantee you. That's actually a very good idea. But so we had this suspense sequence, and then there was another very famous cut scene in which Ripley, as she's trying to escape the ship, comes into a chamber and finds Dallas and what's left of Brett being transformed into what looks like an alien egg. Thoughts?
I agree.
Do you like that scene?
It's pretty. I'm glad it's not there.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's not in the version. It's a pretty haunting scene. The only reason I really wanted to see it the first time is because I wanted to see if it shed any light on. We find out that Dallas knew about the whole expendable crew thing.
That's an interesting idea. I've wondered that myself.
Because he has the access to. He should have seen what Ripley saw, really.
Yeah.
Yes. And would have known about it before he went into the ducts.
Right.
Which perhaps maybe that's why Ash looks so was so unemotional. He wasn't even pretending like he was happy or he was sad that Dallas went down.
I mean, Ash knows. Ash doesn't care about these people. I mean, if he has to, he's going to roll up porn magazines and take them all out. But
one throat at a time.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Dallas, because Dallas is very conflicted when he's in the ducts, Maybe his muttering to himself, and I just get the hell out of here, get back out and, blow the pop stand. But I'm better off without it being in there.
That was one of several.
Aliens. Alien and Aliens are two movies where I much prefer the theatrical cuts of them.
I agree, and there's actually a big lie on Amazon because I saw it one time, and I saw it because the original cut of this movie was 4 hours long, almost 4 hours long. And if you go to Amazon, it's probably still up there. You can find a version of, and I think I actually texted you, Damian, when I saw this. There was a version of Alien that it says is 3 hours and 50-something minutes long. I'm like, oh, is this the assembly cut? I would love to see that. It's a typo. It's the theatrical cut. Somehow it wound up with a running time allegedly of 4 hours. It's not. So don't get your hopes up, folks. But I would love to see the assembly cut because I hear it was pretty terrifying.
Yeah, with Ari Aster, all of his movies now, he has to put out the 4-hour version. So maybe we can get the 4-hour Alien.
And Ridley Scott has been putting out multiple versions of everything, all of his classics for years. So there is a distinct possibility. That's why when I saw that, I was like, oh, he put out the assembly cut. I didn't question it. It was like, well, of course Ridley put out the assembly cut. But he actually didn't. I wanted to say, too, we were talking earlier about the music. Jerry Goldsmith was really pissed about this movie, because he wrote a whole score, and I've heard the score, I've listened to it, and it's very big, florid, very Star Trekky, not really very Alien.
No,
a lot of horns, a lot of strings. Doesn't seem to fit with a claustrophobic movie about 7 people in a tin can.
No, I think he has the same agent that Veronica Cartwright has. So.
Mm-hmm.
He probably thought, he probably read the script for E.T. and thought he was doing that.
And the Star Trek thing, he did do some Star Trek scores for the motion picture. I think he did Star Trek the motion picture, so that might be.
Some of it works, and I mean, Jerry Goldsmith did some. I mean, his score for Leviathan is fantastic.
That's true, and he is a great composer. Like, he's done some great stuff, and I'm not trying to say, but for this, I think he might have misjudged the tone of the movie.
His Leviathan score is also kind of adventure-y and whatnot. I mean, it's not really like a horror score, but it works for that. I think I don't know his process or whatever, but it seems like he didn't know what kind of movie they were making. But, I mean, a lot of it works.
I did see an interview with him one time where he said that he thought that a composer's job really was to take the film that he saw and then write the score and deliver it to the director. So I think he was not – I don't know if he was always like that, but at this time he was doing more like, you just show me your movie and I'll write you a score. So that might have been part of it. Because Ridley Scott was not known at this time, so he – probably thought he would like whatever Goldsmith, because the Goldsmith was known. So it's like, well, he'll like.
Yeah, you're doing a low budget, crappy Alien movie.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the movie is it has an interesting score that's not used. He really got pissed because they took a piece that he wrote for another movie called Freud, and they actually used a piece of his music from a different film in a very prominent spot in Alien, and he didn't like that either. So. And I think they used some needle drop classical stuff at the very end that he didn't like. So,
Artists.
But honestly, with the suspense scenes running through where all you hear are the steam pipes and the sirens, and the place is about to blow up, and you hear people breathing, and so that is in this circumstance far scarier and more suspenseful than horns and strings, I think. So good choice on Ridley's part there. But yeah, man. So overall, I think. Let's talk about. I'm about to end the show without talking about the stunning conclusion.
Yeah.
Where she gets into that escape pod and gets away by herself.
Gets away by herself with Jones.
With Joan, that's right. She's not completely by herself. She saved the damn cat. Everyone else is dead. But she doesn't have the cooling tanks either. I don't think she didn't get those.
No,
that's what Lambert and Parker were going back for. Got them killed over the cooling tanks.
Right.
For the escape pod. But anyway, so she leaves without the cooling tanks, but with the cat, and well, let me just say this. Ridley Scott, I think, picked the wardrobe for the escape pod because she wears some of the.
She's not a robot, but she'll have to do.
Yeah. I mean, she wears panties that are like. Is there any fabric there? Because they barely cover anything. So thanks, Ridley. And then she this thing has gotten onto the ship with her.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty terrifying moment. And
he's taking a nap, a breather in the pipes.
And she blows him out with some steam.
Yeah.
It's like, what's wrong with you? I'm trying to take a nap over here. I would have gone all the way home with you if you just left me alone.
What the fuck?
Because she would have gotten in her little hypersleep pod and everything would have been cool.
Yeah.
But she spots him and she blows him out with some steam, and then she climbs into the spacesuit and she starts singing. What is she singing? She's like, forever, forever, forever. Have you ever noticed that? I always wondered what she's singing.
I don't know those old-timey songs.
Those old-timey futuristic songs.
That's really a space anthem.
But it's a cool little moment. It's a nice touch. Seems
Yeah.
perhaps a little bit ad-libbed, maybe. Maybe that was a Sigourney thing, but well done. And so she gets rid of this thing. She blows it out of the airlock, because that's all you can really do in an Alien. And it's a good trick to learn, because she's going to use it again later. But hey, if it works, why change what works, right? Overall, though, man, I really
Peter Parker suggests it.
Did you say what?
Peter Parker, it's so useful that Peter Parker suggests it years later.
That's very true. And it works there, too.
Works again.
So when in doubt, blow shit out of an airlock.
That's right.
So what overall, what can I say about Alien other than it's just a classic film? I mean, so many movies afterwards have imitated it. It's like, if you watch it now and you're young, you might not realize how great it is because it's been done a million times by other people and not so well.
I'll leave with this. I'll leave you. My son, who was 10 at the time, I think, he's not really into horror movies. He's 12 now, but he wasn't going to bed. He refused to go to bed. So I said, well, you got to go to bed. I'm going to sit here and watch Alien. And he was like, I want to watch it. I want to watch it. And I was like, all right, well, then you gotta sit there and don't move. And we knew that he would get up right away, and he wouldn't sit through it. But he did. Sat through the whole thing, and he loved it. It became his favorite movie for at least a year. In fact, we went to a special screening of it, on like 4/26. So it landed well with him. He wanted to watch Aliens right away.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love hearing that, because that's my kind of kid right there. Because I was the same way. Even though I couldn't watch the Tom Skerritt Dallas in the air duct scene, I was a huge fan of Alien from way back. I'm glad I watched it when I was young. Beck, what do you say about Alien 1979?
It's a damn good movie.
And it's a movie that, has a strong female character that's not necessarily important that she's a female or strong, really. She's just a good character, and she's played by a great actress. And I wish that was more the way we approach things nowadays. Write a good character.
Yes.
And the actor that plays him is great. Then
cast a good actor.
Going to be a great character.
It was originally supposed to be, or there was written a little romance between Ripley and Dallas that was removed.
Yeah. And you get a little bit of a sense of that too in that scene where they're together in the corridor, and she closes the doors on him, like Ash will do to her later. But it's far more benign when she does it.
Yeah, because she doesn't roll anything up, and
she's not trying to mouth rape Dallas. She's just trying to, say hi. But it's.
I was gonna say I was a little older when I first saw Alien. My parents wouldn't let me watch it. They thought it was too scary. So.
No.
So I think my first exposure was actually Spaceballs. That little scene where, that was the first, and even that was kind of like, oh my god, they just popped out of his body.
It's a bizarre moment if you don't know where it's coming from.
Yeah, but.
Yeah. Well, you have to have your first exposure somewhere.
That was mine. Yeah.
There you go. But
it's my parents.
But anyway, so I had a pretty good time tonight. We could go deep into this, because that's the thing. That's one reason I wanted to do these as a series of shows, is because each one of these you can go into in a very, very deep way. And like you say, go down the rabbit hole indefinitely. When we get to Alien 3, that's going to be a fun one. But Aliens is going to be a good one.
That's 1-2 punch in in genre history, maybe even in cinema. But arguably, best
No.
one.
I think I could agree with you on that one, Damian. And we'll go into that more next time when we talk about James Cameron's Aliens with an S.
This morning. Oh,
See, that one makes me very excited.
Yeah, she loves Aliens. So when we get into that,
it's either or. I mean, you can't go wrong loving.
No, yeah, they're both great films. Yeah.
yeah. And so anyway, so I had a good time, great time discussing Alien. Beck, thanks for being here. Rebecca Ivy.
Thanks for having me.
And Damian,
I
thank
actually
you.
have a mug. It's not this mug, but it has all the Marines listed. It's the in order of their pods. When they come up on the thing.
No shit.
It starts with Gorman, goes down to Weirboski.
That's awesome. And that's going to be what you're going to be drinking out of next time, yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
That would be fully appropriate. And that hat will be appropriate very soon as well.
I don't have an Aliens hat. I tried.
Well, I'll see if I can find you one before the next show.
I saw one with it that says bug stomper. What's on the side of the
Yeah. Well, that'll be an interesting thing to talk about too. Ron Cobb directed or designed that little thing that goes on the side of the ship. Ron Cobb from this, because he also designed for Aliens. But now we're going into Aliens, and we're not going to do that.
No crumbling ship in there either.
Yeah. So anyway, guys,
no crumbling ship in Aliens.
Guys, we're going to wrap this one up this time, and we'll be back with you very shortly. So again, Damian, thanks for being with me.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
It's always a pleasure. And until next time, all of you watching, take care of yourselves.